Welcome to Workforces. I'm Julian Alcid.
And I'm Caitlin Lemoyne, and we speak with the innovators who shape the future of work and learning.
Together, we unpack the complex elements of workforce and career preparation and offer practical solutions that can be scaled and sustained.
Workforces is supported by Lumina Foundation. Lumina is an independent private foundation in Indianapolis that is committed to making opportunities for learning beyond high school available to all. Let's dive in. A central focus in our consulting practice and on this podcast is practically how to make meaningful connections between the various organizations and resources that exist to help people close gaps and advance their careers.
Absolutely. We've seen a surge of new tech products designed to bridge skills gaps, connecting individuals with training programs and with the employers who can hire them. And key to their success are solutions that are designed for and responsive to the needs of the end user.
Precisely. And that's why today we're excited to dive into a conversation with a leader who is at the forefront of using technology to connect millions of workers to meaningful career opportunities. Our guest is Steve Lee, the CEO of SkillUp Coalition. Steve has a fascinating career journey that began as a corporate lawyer, then saw him found and successfully exit an educational software company and work at Bain & Company. He then transitioned to the social sector, including a significant role at the Robin Hood Foundation, before taking the helm at SkillUp.
Steve brings a blend of business acumen and a deep commitment to social good, and we're looking forward to speaking with him about how to upscale efforts in a world of rapid change, especially with the increasing influence of AI. Since launching SkillUp in 2020, SkillUp's nonprofit technology platform has already connected nearly 3.5 million workers without a college degree to career training and job supports nationwide, and the coalition now includes more than 150 partners. Impressive.
Truly. So Steve, welcome to Workforces. We're so glad you could join us to share more about these impactful efforts.
I am so honored and thrilled to be here. Thank you both very much for the kind intro. I will say my family just thinks I'm a dork. True story. Anyway, just thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Well, as we get started, can you please tell us a bit more about your background and what led you to your work at SkillUp Coalition?
So as you alluded to, I was in the private sector for a good chunk of, let's say the first half of my career. But I've always sort of been interested in having some impact on the social side. I had a really good conversation with a nonprofit leader when I was in the private sector. And she said something which I thought was really interesting. She said, Steve, I've been doing this work for 50 years and I serve young people and adults. And she said to me that when I serve young people, there's a very good chance that 30 years later, I'm going to see the same person to serve their needs. And what that struck me is this idea of not only just poverty, but this idea of intergenerational poverty. That poverty goes to multiple generations. I'm like, damn, this is not good. This is not the country I want to live in. So what the heck can we do about it? And so that's one of the main reasons I joined philanthropy, is to think about a way, in a very small way, obviously, right? Where I could have some impact, if you will, in a small way, on this idea of improving what I think is one of the biggest scourges in this country, is intergenerational poverty, and the fact that half of 30-year-olds in this country now are worse off than their parents were when they were 30, inflation adjusted. That is a very bad step. All right. That's what drives me with the work I do. It's why I came to SkillUp, because I feel like one of the ways you can address that is if you have stable wages through good work, you have stable families, you have stable kids, and the kids can do better in life. Because every parent in the world, I don't care who you are, rich, poor, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. Every parent wants their kid to do better in life. Every single parent. So we're doing a very, very bad job of that. And so that's why I think this work that we do at SkillUp is important, and why the ecosystem is important. So that's the reason.
It's really sobering when you see those stats about declining wealth, and we've got to fix this because we've helped create this mess, our generation.
Indeed, we have.
The concentration of wealth, and I mean, we could go on, but tell us a little bit more about who SkillUp serves, who you're looking to serve in this kind of intergenerational approach and the range of initiatives that you've developed?
We're primarily designed to serve stars, if you know that terminology. Those are skilled through alternative route, which is basically folks that don't have a college degree. We have a particular focus on the lower rung of that ladder, right? Those who are maybe on public benefits, those are the most marginalized in this country. And we serve youth all the way to adults. And on this journey, I think the most important thing for this journey for us is the fact that we are a coalition. So it's actually our official name. We're not SkillUp, we're the SkillUp Coalition. That's actually our IRS registered name. And that means a lot to us because we're a small nonprofit, right? What the hell are we going to do by ourselves? Like nothing, like literally nothing, right? So we can only do something if we work together with some of our core partners. And if you go to our site, you can see some of our core partners. These are folks who are leaders in the field, and we do our best, right, to add value into that ecosystem. We can talk a little bit more about what value means, but that is the most important thing for us as an organization, is to truly partner for mutual benefit. This is one of what our funders love to say, mutual benefit. It's actually pretty hard to do, mutual benefit, to work with others to create collective effect. And I can give you examples of that, but that is like one of the most important things we can do as an organization.
Please say a little bit more about that. When you say mutual benefit, let's dive in there a little bit.
Yeah. So let's talk about what I think is one of our key jams, right? One of the core value sets that we have, one of our core principles, is to be data-driven, heart-led. I've always liked that term because as a technology nonprofit, we are driven by data. Obviously, I'll talk about what that means. But everything we do, we hope, is to the benefit of workers, right? And we have workers at scale, and we've learned a ton. And so one of the coolest ways that I think we work with partners is on the data side. And let me explain what that means. So we have become a platform for low-wage workers where people are coming to us to some degree with data sets. And what they want to do is they want to test those data sets with real workers to get their worker voice on whether this stuff works or not. So I'll give you some examples. There are some really interesting data sets on the employer side. Groups like American Opportunity Index, which is started by Bird and Glass in partnership with the Charles Family Foundation. There's a Credential Value of Index. I think that's what it's called. It used to be called EQUOS, which has sort of the signals of quality for training programs in America. What these data sets have is really, really good data, but they have no way to surface that data with real workers. And so what we're doing is we're ingesting those data sets, and then we're spitting those data sets into the arms or the eyes of workers across America using SkillUp's platform as a vehicle to do that. And then we're learning to see what works for real workers. This is what I call the heart-led, right? What's the worker voice? What are they telling us? What works and what doesn't work? And then we're spitting that back into our partners to improve their data sets. So it all comes full circle. This idea of ingestion, spitting out data, learning from data, and going back to the original source as a full circle, that's like really, really important, I think, in the greater ecosystem. And I think we're one of the few platforms that can actually do that, right? Because we have technology, we have good UX UI, we have workers we can send things out to, and then we can test at real scale, like tens of thousands, right, within a week or two, to have statistically significant data that comes back to us that we can inform the field. That's a real value, and that's mutual benefit. Like, we're helping our workers, right? And in theory, we're also helping the data sets. That doesn't happen all the time. Like, mutual benefit's actually pretty hard. But that's one example, Caitlin, of how we're thinking about mutual benefit, particularly around data. Because I think that is probably one of our biggest jams, is the ingestion of data, plus the data-driven heart-led, right? The ability to access workers and get their worker voice.
That's a complex space in which you're sitting to build that mutual benefit with, as you said, right? Like the end users, like the people you're looking to serve, as well as with your data partners.
Correct.
Living in kind of the middle of that space, I imagine, is exciting and also pretty complicated.
You know, what's been interesting, what I've learned is, like, this is going to get very wonky, but like data it's basically just like a bunch of fields. But what's tricky is that you have to match those fields. Like this is like wonky data stuff, and like actually matching those fields to collect the right information to get out to the right is actually very tricky, right? Because there are so many fields. So that's actually the hard work. But once you get there, it can be pretty powerful in terms of the stuff that you learn.
So, Steve, just sticking with this one a little bit longer again.
Sure.
This is the geeking out, but because I think our listeners will be very interested. We want to talk about AI on the workforce, but
of course,
are you using AI in this effort to then sort of mine and collate and organize this data?
Yeah, we're using AI, I think, to what I call this idea of more stuff and better stuff. So this is like third grade English, right? And so what we can do with AI is the data sets that we have, we can have more of the things that we want. And what I mean by that is that our main call to action for our users is, hey, what's the right career you have? What career do you want? What job do you want? And 3, you probably need some kind of training to get the right credential to get the job. All right. So what training is it valuable to you? So what AI can do is that it can surface up more opportunities that we wouldn't be able to surface up, but for the power of AI. So that's one. And second, we can be better at what we offer. One of the things that we pride ourselves as being high quality, and we curate all the opportunities. And the curation is done a lot by data sets plus desk research. The desk research can be somewhat replaced by AI, right? So rather than having a human or in conjunction with a human, you have AI to make that research better. And so you have better stuff that we show up as high quality content, as opposed to just having a human plus data sets. Plus you have more stuff because there are some things that we're missing because it's a big country and we're a small nonprofit, right? And so more stuff, better stuff is how what we're doing in terms of the things that we power. The other thing we're doing around AI is what I call horizontal integration. So as you guys know, the journey from a low wage worker starting to look for a job to finding the job can actually be more than just a few inches. It can be miles and miles and miles, right? It takes a long time. It takes months, sometimes years, right? And so if our users stick with us, what we can do with AI, no matter where they are in their journey, we can offer AI as like a recommendation no matter where you are. So you're beginning part of the journey, AI will make some kind of recommendation to Julian saying, we think you should do A, B, and C. But Caitlin is further along in her journey, is about to interview for a job. We could offer a different AI experience. Okay, and say, hey, you should think about doing this for interview prep and things of that sort. And AI can do that almost like when you do a Google search now. You don't see this. You don't see the search result. You see Google AI overview, right? That's the first thing you see. Similar concept for us. No matter where you are, you're going to get something around AI. And then hopefully that helps you drive to a better organization. So that's a horizontal integration AI. And the vertical is more stuff, better stuff.
Are the learners, workers, whatever you're calling the clients there, are they staying with you? I mean, you've now, you do have this growing data set.
It's the trickiest wicket of a direct-to-consumer platform. Unless you're Meta or Google, it's hard for direct-to-consumer users to stick, right? And we have the same issues as others. I would say about roughly half of our users drop off after sort of initial experience. But the other half stick around to some manner or form. And then for us, that's actually pretty good, right? As a direct-to-consumer, a nonprofit, right? So we're actually proud with like the half that stick. But what our partners say sometimes, even if they come and they bounce, maybe there's value that you just don't know. They come, they browse a little bit, they may leave after 30 seconds. You don't know what value you've had. So our partner's like, okay, it's the fact that they don't stick around for a year, that's okay, because maybe they have some value just in the 30 seconds that spark an idea, and then they go someplace else. But maybe we sparked an idea. We just don't know that.
Well, and we are living at such a complex moment with respect to the labor market and the shifts we're seeing there. And I'm curious, Steve, to hear you speak a little bit to that as it pertains to the platform and other initiatives you're working on as well, because I can imagine, part of what you're saying about whether people stick or not. I mean, that has to do with all these other shifts that are happening in the broader landscape.
It's funny. One of the things that we think about a lot is where's the puck going? I'm a big hockey fan of all things. I'm a kid. I used to follow Wayne Gretzky, and he had like 3 eyes in the back of his head. He knew where the puck was going, right? And we're not that, but we try to prognosticate. Mm-hmm. And there are data sets that do this kind of stuff, right? And that's research. And so to be very specific about it, in the world of AI, because that is where the puck is going. In fact, that's where the puck is. How do we have a platform that is going to serve the worker now and serve the worker 2 years from now and 5 years from now?
Yeah.
The thing that's come up most recently, and it's fairly obvious, is the world of sort of skills trades, advanced manufacturing, green jobs, things of that sort, that have come to the fore recently. One, because there's been a lot of money that's been pumped into the Biden administration, right? Rightfully so. But also, I think people are realizing that this might be sort of what I call the anti-AI, right? As we think about like entry-level jobs, and there's been some recent research through BGR and some others that say, college grads are not getting hired as much in the most recent cycle, in part maybe because of AI, right? So we don't know what's going to be bounced, right, because of AI. I happen to think even of some of the jobs that SkillUp has now will be bounced because of AI. And if that's the case, then we shouldn't have those jobs anymore, right? Let's be honest. So we're trying to think about where the jobs. So we think skills trades, advanced manufacturing, there's a piece of that. We have some pretty big efforts afoot, right, to do that across America, tied to some big federal grants with a couple of key partners, and tied to some community colleges that are doing, I think, really cutting edge work on some of the training aspects around getting people the right credential for some of these advanced manufacturing green jobs. And I think some of this stuff will be important. And this is, it takes a long time to get this to fruition. We're working on that now as what I call the anti-AI, right? As we incorporate AI into our product, sort of product experience.
As you're trying to hone in on the future and where the puck's going, what are you learning? And what are some of the challenges you're facing?
I think we're learning something about what I just said, right?
Yeah.
Which I think, and this applies to SkillUp, because SkillUp's main jam is to help people get what we call gateway jobs. And this is a terminology that Opportunity Workers has created through their stars, tailored paper ceiling campaign. The challenge with gateway jobs in the world of AI is I think some of those gateway jobs ain't going to be here. Like, I really don't, right? Think about things like a customer service rep. I'm going to use that as an example. That is one of our gateway jobs now. At least I think it is, right? You think that's going to be around 3 years from now? I don't know, right? Let's say that's the level of scale. So I think what we're learning now is that some of those things ain't going to be here anymore. The challenge is, if that's the case, what's the alternative? And the deeper challenge is, how do we get a non-traditional marginalized worker into this new future? That might have been relatively easy as a customer service rep, right? You can get that without paying a lot of money, short-term training, or even just get the job without a college degree. Maybe that's feasible, but the other stuff may require a 2-month credential at community college.
Mm-hmm.
It might, right? And it might cost you $2,000. So how do you get that, especially work with marginalized populations? So what does that mean for us? Maybe we need to go up the food chain loop, maybe work with less marginalized, maybe, that have the means to take a 2-month, $2,000 cost. Maybe. I'd rather not do that, because our jam is to serve the hardest to serve population. So I think these are the things that are floating in my head, is like supply, labor, supply demand issues. It's very tricky, but we part of why we exist is to be able to offer things that are of the moment, that are real, viable, and high quality. And I don't think, I'm going to use customer service rep, I don't think that's going to be high quality. And in fact, I don't think it'll exist, right, in 3 years. So, but that's a struggle that we work through, Julian, as best we can.
A great example.
Yeah, well, and I would imagine too, the other piece of this, as you've said, right, this is a coalition effort, and I guess I'm wondering, how do you go about forming and reforming partnerships and coalitions to advance this work in a way that is, kind of timely, and, as you're saying, maybe moving where the puck is going, even if we're not all entirely clear exactly where that is? What are some considerations that you take into account as you go about that work?
I think part of it is that what I hope we do is we go in with some humility, all right, into the conversation, if you will, in partners, because we don't have all the answers. And sometimes we are not the right partner. So you should kick us out. And we should be humble enough to recognize that we shouldn't be part of that, the big kids table, right? That's true. And so, but if we think we should be, I think we hope come in in this mindset of value add in
Mhm.
some manner or form. So think about some of the things I've had, like American Opportunity Index or what used to be called Equus, right? We came in there that we think we can add some value because we have an asset that maybe you don't have,
Mhm.
which is this ability to test with real users using a product experience that's actually going to make your data sets better. So I always try to come in with humility, with value add, with mutual benefit. And I think the fourth thing is someone doing this already? We are not the only career navigation platform,
Mhm.
right? There are many, 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 right, across the globe, as you guys know. Some of them are our friends, right? So the question is that that's already being done by somebody else, then it makes no sense for us to bring it, right? No value add. I think that's actually really, because we live in a world where we don't have enough time to compete. We just got to do our thing. You do your thing well. If you want us, great. Or if we add value, if not, they kick us out, right? And that's perfectly fair with a mindset of humility, right? As opposed to being a little bit, angry about it.
So don't get angry. So on the topic of coalitions, then a lot of our work involves, navigating, building these coalitions. And I was looking at your May newsletter or your LinkedIn announcement about your newsletter, and you talked a little bit about the data and the distinction between national and regional or local coalitions. And I know you kind of play in both spaces. Can you speak to that at all?
Of course, regional is really important for us for very various reasons. One, less important. This is where the funders sometimes might be, right? Let's be honest, right? Sometimes you need money to do some stuff, right? There are a lot of regional funders, but that's not the most important thing. Yes, we have a national presence, right? True. If you're in North Dakota where we don't have regional experience, you can take value of SkillUp, right? In terms of things that might be virtual or remote, things that great. But everything, as we know, I knew you all know this, right? Happens at the regional level. It's where the labor market goes. It's where the employers are. It's where the people and the families are. And so we have built, I want to say 35 regional sites. And I think the value of those regional sites is that they're very bespoke to the region. So the things we offer, whether it's the right career, the right job, or the right training, is all tied to labor market demand in that region. So when you go to Los Angeles, right, you're going to see a very different experience, right, than if you go to my home city of New York versus some other of our other 30 plus regions, right? And that's really valuable because people in Los Angeles don't give a crap about New York or vice versa. I don't give a crap about Los Angeles, right? I hate the Dodgers, right? And the Lakers. I just care about New York. Although New York kind of sucks too, to be honest with you, when it comes to sports. But New York is its own beast, right? And its own employment, right? And its own employers. And that's the experience that we offer that's rich and deep. The other thing it brings that is often difficult for us is a ground game. So we have a really good air game, aka technology, at least we think we do. What we miss sometimes is the ground game with like local on the ground organizations do really meaningful work. And if we can better connect our users beyond just the air game into a ground game where they can get direct support for things like wraparound support service, things like that, that's really, really, really valuable. Air game plus ground game. And some of our partners, funders are looking for that combination. You can't get that in North Dakota. I'm just making fun of North Dakota, right? You can't because we don't have a ground game, right? And that's really powerful. So you get local assets important for the user. And if we can work it out, you get a ground game of support services that better enrich the experience for workers in that community.
Yeah, I love this notion of the air and ground, right? Because there's also the way that the learnings from the ground game could impact the air game too, right? And so being able to operate at both of those levels just makes so much good sense.
Totally.
I'm sure there's like endless lessons that you're pulling from some of that regional work
exactly
to inform what you do more broadly.
Exactly.
I was just going to say, we need maximum flexibility, right? Because everything we're talking about is like people, machines, national, local. It's like it's a very fluid system. So we need all the tools to bring to the table.
Indeed we do.
So, Steve, drawing from your experiences and pulling on I guess, all of the different threads we've been talking through today, what practical steps can our audience take to become forces in scaling upskilling and workforce development efforts? What are some practical takeaways you might recommend for others looking to do this kind of work?
Reach out, right? I'm easy to find, so you can find me on LinkedIn, right? And let's try to work together, right? Because you just never know, right? So I think that's my first sort of is reach out. And because who knows, right? What great things can happen. The other thing I would say, and this is more of my philanthropic experience when I was at Robinhood here in New York City, is do something. This makes any sense. You run a nonprofit in a particular region. Approach things with this idea of like humility, value add, and mutual benefit. If that makes any sense. Because I think people want to work together. This is also, if I'm being honest, it's where the stakeholders and the funders are going in part is if you want to get the resources of a nonprofit to do great work, more philanthropists are asking for joint mutual efforts beyond just your own effort. And so I think it behooves us as an ecosystem to think collectively together, just like philanthropy doing is, recently they've done much more, and I like this, about having like this collective effort stuff. There's like an AI collective funder group. There's like a skills trades collective group. There's an impact collective group, right? When I used to philanthropy, I didn't give a crap about other funders. I just wanted to be in my own sandbox, right? Robinhood, right? But now people are thinking, that's really good, right? Mm-hmm. Think the same as a tactical organization is if you can work together with others for some level of mutual benefit, even though it's hard because you have to give a little bit. I think money, it's a little easier to get money, if that makes any sense, right? That's a very tactical money because people care about money, right?
Those are two pretty foundational, provide a lot of direction in those two recommendations. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Great question. I'm really, really, really honest about like working together. Like I think that's really important. And some of the coolest partners we've had have just been through random conversations.
Well, that comes through loud and clear, Steve. And, it's been such a pleasure talking with you as always today. And, we look forward to continuing the conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you both for all that you guys do. And I'll make a plug for you guys. I think you guys have been awesome. I think you're one of the best podcasts out there in America for workforce. So thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Very nice of you.
That's all we have for you today. Thank you for listening to Workforces. We hope that you take away nuggets that you can use in your own work. Thank you to our sponsor, Lumina Foundation. We are also grateful to our wonderful producer, Dustin Ramsdell. You can listen to future episodes at workforces.info or on Apple, Amazon, and Spotify. Please subscribe, like, and share the podcast with your colleagues and friends.